Chapter 1814, Reversing Time. Void World Departure is not truly invincible as a defense. That battle with the Hades Gatekeeper. Well, it seems a bit like flattering myself. After all, Zhang Yi can't just imitate a certain neon ninja who threw a shuriken at the first generation of the Chaozhou sect and claimed to have fought him. In fact, the gap in power between him and the Hades Gatekeeper was so great that there was simply no comparison. But the Hades Gatekeeper still let him know that there is a way to break the space ability. On the battlefield, countless changes can occur in an instant. The energy response of the spear in the hands of Demon God Ding is getting stronger and stronger, and the intelligence system has already issued a red alert, telling him to escape from this area as soon as possible. Zhang Yi's body suddenly seemed to have come to a standstill in midair. His left eye, the hour and minute hands of the clock, were almost frozen, but the second hand was spinning frantically. It got faster and faster, sweeping out a fan-shaped area. The next moment, Zhang Yi took a step back and disappeared into the Void World Departure. The crack in the dimensional gate closed, completely separating him from the present world. But then, Demon God Ding's spear pierced the very spot where he had disappeared. A circular channel formed around the spear, which arrived at the spot where he had left, and then also caused ripples in the void. Then, Zhang Yi's eyes saw the slender black spear that had entered the different dimension with him. He snapped back to reality. Zhang Yi realized that his guess was correct. Mechanical civilization had highly developed technology, and they had studied the power generated by human body mutation for a longer period of time. He just didn't expect that he could precisely locate his own spatial coordinates and then kill him. Zhang Yi immediately changed his choice. This time, he chose to block the opponent's move. The red energy crystal on the top of the black spear burned out all its energy, and a terrifying power that filled the air with a sense of oppression came at him in waves. Each shockwave had unimaginable destructive power. This power was an indiscriminate attack on everything within a 4-kilometer radius, which meant that Zhang Yi could not possibly avoid it by moving his position. So Zhang Yi simply withdrew the dimensional gates, and everything under heaven formed a layered defense. The outermost layer is the most convenient sphere for dissipating force. Moving inward, it gradually forms a polyhedron according to the space. And at the very outside, 2-dimensional gates form a perfectly fitting spherical space with a diameter of 1 meter. The second defense is an octahedron like a diamond. The attack arrived in an instant, and Zhang Yi's pupils emitted a bright and fading light. The power of time and space converged and merged, dissolving the opponent's attack power. Time-space reversal. A powerful fusion skill that can knock an opponent's attack back to its original form, greatly weakening its attack and defense, and even directly depriving the opponent of its means of attack. The first wave of energy attack was weakened, and then slammed hard onto everything under heaven. A terrifying power surged into dimensional space like a tidal wave, and the power of the energy was so great that Zhang Yi couldn't help but frown. In less than a second, the 3 outermost dimensional gates shattered. Then 10, then 20. Zhang Yi struggled to maintain his dimensional gates, and they were eventually destroyed more than 100 times. In overclock state, the Demon God Ding's explosive power was close to Black Bishop level. Even everything under heaven could hardly completely absorb his attacks. But this obviously also consumed a huge amount of energy. In order to prevent Zhang Yi from evading, a large number of attacks actually landed in empty space, and only some of them affected Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi came back to his senses. The power of the second hand of time is to predict everything that may happen within 3 seconds. However, his own self is not within the scope of the prophecy, which means that he is completely free to make his own choices. Then within these 3 seconds, there could be countless possible endings. In theory, Zhang Yi could deduce countless possibilities and then make the best choice. But in reality, the time needed for the brain to think also needs to be deducted, so at most he can deduce 3 possible futures that will result. Since he already knew that the first option was not very promising, the second option, although somewhat exhausting, successfully blocked the opponent's attack. Therefore, Zhang Yi chose to perform the third deduction, an upper-level time-related ability that was even more accurate than Gao Changkong's reincarnation theory ability. The third time, Zhang Yi reacted differently from the previous 2 times. Instead of just defending, he raised the Divine Refinement spears in his hands. The 2 Divine Refinement spears merged into one. The red energy crystals suddenly burst with unimaginable heat and light, as if they were on fire. The mechanical principle was actually very simple, but it was like driving a car with the accelerator pedal pushed to the floor. Liu Karen, a level Epsilon Divine Craftsman, had already solved many problems for him during the process. So when Demon God Ding realized that his enemy in front of him could also use the same ability as him, his brain's computing mechanism momentarily crashed. He went completely blank. Why is this happening? According to our investigations, the technological level of human civilization is very low. Why can they use our weapons and technology? Demon God Ding did not get an answer because his computing structure overheated a little, causing him to slow down for a split second. But in a masterful battle, just a moment's lapse can be fatal. Zhang Yi's 2 Divine Refinement spears merged into one, and the red energy crystals, which were incredibly valuable, one was enough to support the energy consumption of an aircraft carrier's several months of ocean voyages, burned completely. Boom! The sound of the earth-shattering energy burst was heard. A red pillar of light spewed from the muzzle of the Divine Refinement spears, instantly traversing the space between him and Demon God Ding. Demon God Ding came back to his senses and realized that he had been slow to react. He hurriedly struck out, counterattacking with the same attack. The 2 forces collided fiercely in midair, and the 2 red pillars of light, as if the Rui golden cudgel of the Monkey King had turned into the form of the Dinghai Divine Pillar, were huge and carried an air that could destroy everything. The energy bodies collided in midair and annihilated each other. The same technical means and the same burning of the energy bodies had nothing to do with the combat effectiveness of the mutants and mechanical life forms themselves. The 2 men simultaneously fired their guns at each other, and what determined their lives or deaths was the power of the firearms and the speed of their shots. Zhang Yi was slightly faster than Demon God Ding. So the first to collapse was Demon God Ding. The terrifying energy ripples swept towards him, engulfing him in midair. A red wave swept across the sky, layer upon layer of air shockwaves forming, the terrifying sound almost capable of shattering human eardrums. The battlefield below was also affected, with a fierce wind blowing. Many smaller mechanical life forms, and even Zhang Yi's team of mutants, were directly blown away. After the attack, Zhang Yi looked at the Divine Refinement spears in his hands. Black smoke was billowing from the barrel, and a large amount of plant constructs had been destroyed. However, after he injected energy into it, it regenerated quickly. What a wonderful ability! Zhang Yi couldn't help but exclaim. The power of this energy was so strong that he was intoxicated by it and couldn't extricate himself. But at the same time, he felt a little sad. The consumable red energy bodies had to be used one for each strike, and Zhang Yi only had a limited number in his hands. He still wanted to save some for the construction of the Doomsday Fortress. Demon God Ding was dealt a blow. He had never thought that his battle with humans would be anything but a foregone conclusion. But he was truly shocked by Zhang Yi. The evolution of this species is faster than anyone could have imagined. It's clear that they have only been around for tens of thousands of years, yet they have already reached this point. Our ancestors, on the other hand, took hundreds of thousands of years to achieve what they did. Rips appeared on Demon God Ding's body, but he quickly stood up, and a flash of light flashed over his body. The cracks all disappeared, as if they had never been attacked. Clang! The armor on his back shook, and the structure, which looked like a giant centipede coiled on his body, opened inch by inch at the joints and then extended. A giant centipede more than 7 meters long, formed from a special black metal, suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Yi's eyes. The traces of the attack have been erased. It doesn't seem like it has the ability to repair itself. Combined with his strange behavior before, does the special ability he possesses reverse time? Zhang Yi had a vague guess in his mind. The source of the demon god Gui's power is the spirit of sacrifice. This also means that they were transformed from living beings into androids, so it is possible for them to use supernatural abilities. Although the mechanical combat power is strong, supernatural abilities are even more treacherous. Demon god Gui may not have supernatural powers, or his powers are not as strong as the attack power of the artificial human, so he does not use them. But that doesn't mean that artificial humans can't use supernatural powers. The battle was fierce in the distance. Zhang Yi had launched a wave of artillery fire in advance to create the perfect conditions for his men. However, the combat units were still very powerful. 3 deaths had already been reported on the team's channel. Zhang Yi didn't say anything about this. Dying in battle could only mean that they were either very strong or just unlucky. Only the elite who survived countless life and death battles would be the focus of his training in the future. Of course, he didn't really treat everyone equally. For example, Uncle Yu and Fatty Su were wearing top-of-the-line equipment and were under the care of Deng Shentong and Liang Yu, so as long as they didn't face opponents of Epsilon level, it would be very difficult for them to die. Zhang Yi clenched his long sword in his hand and locked eyes with the demon god Deng, who had slowly risen to his feet above the earth. It can make my attacks disappear directly, make the dimensional gate and even bullets disappear without a trace, and also repair my own damage as if it were brand new. Time-based ability? Reversing time, right? Zhang Yi muttered under his breath. In the background of the system, that is, in shadow space, there were actually a lot of spectators watching this battle. Outside the arena, Zhang Yi fought fiercely, and the real fight between the two sides did not last more than a minute. However, everyone knew that the outcome could be decided in an instant. The only thing that could be believed was Zhang Yi's ability to save his life. Even if he would fall into a disadvantage, he always retained the ability to escape at any time. While Zhang Yi was fighting in the front, the others were also busy. Yang Xinxin had a supercomputer in front of her, her hands constantly tapping on the keyboard, her gaze focused. Brother, from the signs just now, he has the ability to completely erase your attacks and the dimensional gate. However, this ability has its upper limit. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been injured. Your guess is correct. Most likely, it is a time-based ability, and it can even reverse time within a certain range. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Ever since he had become an Epsilon-class life form, the opponents he had encountered had been more and more difficult to deal with. As expected, none of the creatures that could become high-level creatures were mundane. Demon God Ding, who ranked 4th among the 10 demon gods, even had a perverted ability. I wonder what kind of powerful abilities the top 3 have. Zhang Yi thought about the mutants from other countries that he would soon face or had already fought, and prayed for them, wishing them luck. Time reversal? This ability is not without a solution. At least for my Divine Realm Netherworld cleansing, he cannot reverse this kind of unpredictable attack, Yang Xinxin said indifferently. Don't worry. Once we know what he really is, it will be easier to find his weak points. Brother, continue fighting him. I need more information. Zhang Yi outside the world imperceptibly nodded, although Yang Xinxin could not see this action. The battle continued until this time, and it seemed that neither side had gained a decisive advantage. However, those who knew Zhang Yi well knew that he was now in the clear. The reason is simple: as long as the battle drags on, his advantages as a mutant with space abilities will be fully exploited. His logistical support capabilities are too powerful. For Demon God Ding, the red energy body is the energy that keeps him going. So that kind of fatal attack, used once, will weaken his power by a certain amount. Even when the red energy body is used up, he will just be a machine for others to slaughter. But for Zhang Yi, in addition to being able to use this method as well, he has more than 1,000 ways to continue fighting. And the point is, how to quickly find the enemy's weak spot. This is also the demon god Ding's biggest headache. It's better to say that he is now even more passive than Zhang Yi. He has obviously obtained the best combat plan based on Zhang Yi's data in the data hub. However, for one thing, Zhang Yi did not need to use his full strength when fighting demon god Gui, and for another, the traces of using his spatial ability were not obvious, so the system did not determine his ability to foretell the future using the spatial ability. Second, the data hub simply could not determine that he could master the high-tech weapons of the mechanical civilization. Demon God Ding looked around, and the battle had already broken out completely over an area of hundreds of miles. A large number of mechanical life forms have encountered opponents. The plan to concentrate all forces and prioritize breaking Zhang Yi's defenses has also failed. Zhang Yi has already formed a basic judgment of the abilities of Demon God Ding. What needs to be done next is to stretch the timeline and maximize his advantages. At this time, Demon God Ding's body has completely changed into the form of a centipede, losing its humanoid form. His body shot straight up into the sky, twisting nimbly as it rushed towards Zhang Yi twice as fast as before. Zhang Yi immediately backed up and kept firing the shield-piercing spear. By anticipating Demon God Ding's movements, he accurately hit his body. However, the bullets shot at the centipede's slippery carapace and were even directly bounced off, having no effect at all. Even a nuclear bullet's explosive power was not enough to damage its high-tech mechanical body. Choosing to take my attack with his body instead of using his ability to dissipate it. This shows that he cannot use that ability indefinitely. The purpose of getting close to me is because the activation of his ability requires control within a certain range. As long as he gets close to me, he can directly dissolve my everything under heaven, right? When it comes to speed, Zhang Yi has never been afraid of anyone. He immediately drew away from the Demon God Ding, whose speed could never match his space shuffle. However, Zhang Yi's attacks did not have any effect on the Demon God Ding. Even though he was unable to dodge his most confident move, Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing, the Demon God Ding was still able to avoid taking any damage. And just like before with the Demon God Gui, he could not cause mechanical damage by continuously releasing his abilities. Because Demon God Ding can reverse time and restore his body. Zhang Yi frowned and began to test endlessly. The two adopted the same tactic, which was to try every means possible to break through the other party's defenses, while also guarding against having their own defenses breached. Zhang Yi never gave Demon God Ding the opportunity to get close, which was a huge torment for him. Because in centipede form, he actually has extremely powerful melee combat abilities, but in the face of Zhang Yi's everything under heaven, he is also at a loss. Continuing to fight under the current circumstances will reduce the possibility of my victory to less than 50%, which is very dangerous. A change in tactics is necessary. Demon God Ding did not foolishly continue to engage in a dogfight with Zhang Yi. After repeatedly failing to break through Zhang Yi's defenses, he finally changed his tactics. With the aid of electronic equipment, one could clearly see Zhang Yi's layered dimensional gates in his eyes. The degree of his strict defense was already enough to make one's back hair stand on end. An external breakthrough will not find the right opportunity. A pure energy body attack will have its upper limit negated, and I will have no advantage at all. However, the Space Attribute Door's abilities seem to only have the ability to absorb and reflect attacks, and do not have the ability to attack actively. Therefore, Demon God Ding immediately made a decision. He twisted his long body in the air, twisting strangely, giving off an eerie feeling. Suddenly, dozens of hideous red eyes appeared on his head, shooting powerful energy rays towards Zhang Yi. This kind of attack is not enough to break through my defense. Zhang Yi did not hesitate to use everything under heaven to resist. At this moment, Ding also did something that Zhang Yi found unbelievable. He rushed directly into the dimensional gate as fast as he could. Zhang Yi watched this happen without trying to stop him. His otherworldly space was very large, and he had artificially divided it into multiple parts. The Gate of 3,000 Realms was just one part. In fact, there were deeply hidden areas and places where supplies were stored. No one has ever entered the alternate dimension and walked out normally. Zhang Yi himself could not do it either. The space's time flow rate for matter is completely different from that of the spiritual body. Any creature entering it will experience an extremely severe sense of disconnection, which can lead to mental abnormalities and even collapse. That is his domain. If Demon God Ding can destroy it from the inside, then in principle it will be more difficult than breaking it from the outside. Demon God Ding entered Zhang Yi's alternate dimension, and the first thing he felt was a sense of time slowing down. But this was no problem for him, because apart from his source as a living creature, everything else was already mechanical. So by adjusting his body, he could adapt to the time flow here. There was no air, no microorganisms, just a dead white expanse of space. It was so simple that even Demon God Ding was a little surprised. But on second thought, it should be like this. This is not some special ability. If someone else were to use it, they would most likely only be able to use it as a storage warehouse. It was Zhang Yi who used his imagination to develop it into a powerful defensive skill. The stability of the small spaces created by ability users is much worse than that of the universe. I can break the barrier of this space. Demon God Ding made this judgment. He raised the black spear in his hand, and data streams floated past in sheets in his mechanical pupil. He locked onto a location, and the spear in his hand thrust out violently, and a huge circular passage immediately appeared in front of him. He passed through that passage, but he did not arrive outside. In front of him was a new world of space. Everything that happened inside the dimensional space was within Zhang Yi's gaze. Within his eyes, the thousands of dimensional spaces formed a huge, constantly moving Rubik's Cube. Demon God Ding could indeed break the barrier of space, but his method was not to destroy, but to open a passage. This method is energy-saving, but he misjudged the interior of the dimensional space. Zhang Yi created a huge maze and was able to control the position between each space. As long as he doesn't want to, Demon God Ding will never be able to come out from the inside by opening a spatial passage. Is this considered to be walking into a trap? Zhang Yi's mouth revealed a slight smile, but his mind was fully focused on the dimensional space. This is a very powerful and dangerous enemy that must not be underestimated. Demon God Ding kept moving through dimensional space, opening one dimensional gate after another. However, all he could see was a white expanse, with nothing else in sight. He spent a long time inside, and finally determined that there was no point in continuing to search like this. Finally, he decided to burn the second red energy crystal and detonate the entire dimensional space from the inside.